Hey there. We're diving into something pretty cool today. It's all about how emotions shape our relationships. We've got this podcast script. It's called Relationships and Emotions, the Heart of Connection. And it's just packed with insights. Have you ever noticed how some conversations just flow while others feel like you're walking through a minefield?
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it, this script? It really digs into how understanding our emotions can, completely change the game in our relationship.
Totally. It's like emotions are this secret language we use to connect.
Yeah.
But we don't always realize we're speaking it.
That's a great way to put it. The script actually talks about emotions being the language of connection. So think about it. A simple, I'm fine, can mean a world of different things depending on the emotion behind it. Maybe it's genuine, maybe it's masking frustration,
Right.
or maybe it's a way to just avoid conflict.
Right. Well, yeah. And it gets even deeper. The source points out that it's not just about what we're feeling in the moment. It's about all the emotional baggage we bring from past experiences, our expectations, even fears we might not even realize we have.
Yeah, it's like, we're all walking around with these invisible backpacks full of emotional history, and it spills into every interaction. Remember that time you were stressed from work and totally overreacted to your friend canceling plans?
Oh, tell me about it. It happens to the best of us. But the script actually gives a perfect example of this. So imagine you're having a crazy day and your partner doesn't text back right away. Suddenly that unanswered text feels like a personal attack.
Exactly. It triggers all these insecurities and anxieties, and it makes us see things through a distorted lens. The source calls this emotional hijacking, where our feelings literally hijack our rational thinking.
Okay, emotional hijacking.
Yep.
That's a new one for me. But it makes so much sense. So how do we avoid letting our emotions run the show?
Wow. That's where emotional regulation comes in. The script emphasizes the importance of recognizing our own emotional state. Are we stressed, tired, anxious? Once we're aware of what's driving our feelings, we can start to choose our responses instead of just reacting impulsively.
So it's like hitting the pause button before things escalate.
Exactly. It's about shifting from reaction to response. Imagine, instead of snapping back at someone, you say, "Hey, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed right now. Can we talk about this later when I've had a chance to cool down?"
That feels so much healthier. And honestly, way more mature than how I usually handle things.
We've all been there. But what's powerful about this approach is that it shows a willingness to take responsibility for your own emotional state. You're not blaming the other person. You're communicating your needs in a way that invites understanding.
I like that. This is already making me rethink how I handle things. So we're talking about being aware of our emotions, choosing responses, and taking responsibility. What else does the script highlight?
Well, this leads us to another crucial element: empathy. The script describes it as the bridge between emotions. It's not just about understanding what someone else is feeling intellectually. It's about actually connecting with their experience on an emotional level.
Okay. So it's more than just knowing someone is sad. It's about actually feeling that sadness with them.
Precisely. And that shared emotional experience creates a profound sense of connection. It's like speaking the same language, even if you don't share the same words. But here's where it gets really interesting. The script points out how empathy is closely tied to vulnerability.
That makes sense. To truly empathize with someone, you have to be open to feeling their emotions, even if they're uncomfortable. But putting yourself out there emotionally can be scary, especially if you've been hurt in the past.
Absolutely. It takes courage to be vulnerable, but the rewards can be incredible. It allows for a depth of connection that just wouldn't be possible otherwise.
Okay, so we've got this foundation of emotional awareness, responsive communication, and empathy. What are some practical ways we can actually put all of this into practice?
Well, the script mentions a few key strategies: self-reflection, open communication, finding emotional balance, and active listening. These are all important. But let's dive a little deeper into self-reflection, because it's often the missing piece.
Self-reflection, that sounds a bit intimidating, like staring into my own emotional abyss.
Yeah.
But I get why it's important. How do we actually do it without, spiraling?
It's less about staring into an abyss and more about cultivating a gentle curiosity about your inner world. It's about noticing your emotional patterns, your triggers, and how your past experiences might be influencing your reactions in the present.
That's like becoming a detective.
Of your own emotions.
Exactly. And the script offers some great tips for this. One is to start a journaling practice. Just spend a few minutes each day reflecting on your emotions. Like, is it? What made you feel happy today? What caused stress? Or frustration. Don't judge your feelings. Just observe them with curiosity.
Okay. That feels a lot more approachable than I thought. Just noticing those little emotional blips throughout the day. Right. And as you start paying attention, you might notice certain patterns emerging. Like maybe you realize that you tend to get defensive when you feel criticized, or that you withdraw emotionally when you're feeling overwhelmed.
And knowing those patterns can be a game changer, right? It's like having a cheat sheet for your own emotional responses.
Exactly. It allows you to anticipate those reactions and choose a different path. Instead of automatically getting defensive, you might take a breath and say, can you help me understand what you mean by that?
Wow. That's a huge shift. So we're not trying to suppress or deny our emotions. We're just trying to understand them better so we can make more conscious choices.
Precisely. And self-reflection isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing practice. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so self-reflection is key. What about open communication? That feels pretty straightforward. Yeah. But I bet there's more to it than just talking more.
You're absolutely right. The script emphasizes the importance of communicating your emotions in a clear and assertive way, but it also highlights the importance of listening with empathy.
So it's a two-way street, expressing yourself clearly, but also truly hearing what the other person is saying, even if it's difficult.
Exactly. It's about creating a safe space where both people feel comfortable sharing their emotions without fear of judgment or rejection. And that's not always easy, especially when dealing with difficult conversations or conflict.
Right, because in those moments, it's so tempting to just shut down or lash out. But the script suggests something called I statements. Can you explain what those are and how they work?
Sure. I statements are a really powerful tool for communicating your emotions in a way that's less likely to trigger defensiveness in the other person. So instead of saying, you always make me feel, you start with, I feel, and then describe your emotion and what triggered it.
So instead of saying, you always interrupt me, and it makes me feel disrespected, you might say, I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted, because it makes me feel like my thoughts aren't being heard.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from blame to your own experience, which is less likely to escalate the conflict.
Oh, that's brilliant. I can see how that would completely change the tone of a conversation. So, we've covered self-reflection, open communication, and the power of I statements. The script also mentions finding emotional balance. What does that even mean?
Well, it's about recognizing that we can't be happy and positive all the time. It's about accepting the full spectrum of human emotions, joy, sadness, anger, fear, and finding healthy ways to manage them.
So it's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about having a toolkit for dealing with the inevitable ups and downs.
Exactly. And that toolkit might include things like exercise, spending time in nature, practicing mindfulness, or engaging in creative activities. The key is to find what works for you and to prioritize those activities that help you feel grounded and balanced.
Makes sense. It's like having a self-care routine for your emotions.
Exactly. And the script also emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries. Sometimes finding emotional balance means saying no to things that drain your energy or spending less time with people who bring you down.
Yeah, that's so important. I think a lot of us struggle with boundaries, but they're crucial for protecting our emotional well-being. So we've covered self-reflection, open communication, finding emotional balance. What about active listening? That seems like a pretty basic concept, but I have a feeling there's more to it than just nodding your head and saying,
You're absolutely right. Active listening is so much more than just hearing words. It's about being fully present with the other person, paying attention to their verbal and nonverbal cues, and making them feel truly heard and understood.
So it's about putting your phone down, making eye contact, and really absorbing what they're saying, both with their words and their body language.
Exactly, and it's about resisting the urge to jump in with solutions or advice. Sometimes people just need to feel heard without being fixed.
Which can be tough, especially if you're a natural problem solver. But sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen with empathy and validate their feelings.
Exactly, and the script offers some great tips for becoming a better active listener. One is to paraphrase what the other person has said, to make sure you understand them correctly. Another is to ask clarifying questions, to show that you're paying attention, and to deepen your understanding.
Okay, so it's about reflecting back what you're hearing and asking questions that show you're genuinely engaged. But what about when you disagree with what the other person is saying? Is it still possible to actively listen in those moments?
Absolutely. In fact, It's even more important in those moments to listen with empathy and try to understand their perspective. Even if you don't agree with it, you might say something like, I hear that you're feeling frustrated about this. Can you help me understand why?
That takes a lot of maturity, but it's such a valuable skill. So we've got all these amazing tools for navigating the emotional landscape of our relationships. What's the key takeaway? What do we really need to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that emotions are not the enemy. They are a vital part of what makes us human and what allows us to connect with others on a deeper level.
I love that. It's a reminder that we don't have to be afraid of our emotions. We just need to learn how to speak their language.
Exactly. And the more we understand our own emotions and how they influence our relationships, the more fulfilling and authentic those relationships can become.
It feels like we've uncovered this whole treasure trove of insights about emotions and relationships. I'm already feeling more equipped to navigate those tricky emotional waters.
Yeah, I think what's so empowering about this script is that gives us concrete tools to work with. It's not just theory, it's practical advice we can apply to our everyday interaction.
Totally. It's like we've been given this new lens for understanding ourselves and the people around us.
Right. And remember, it's an ongoing journey. We're all works in progress, constantly learning and evolving in our relationships.
So true. But even small shifts in awareness can make a huge difference. Like that idea of using I statements instead of blaming language. That's something I can start doing today.
Absolutely. And maybe you decide to try that journaling exercise we talked about, just to become more aware of your emotional patterns.
Yeah. It's exciting to think about how these small changes can ripple out and create more positive and fulfilling connections in our lives.
It is. And don't forget the power of empathy, making a conscious effort to truly understand and connect with the emotions of others can transform your relationships in profound ways.
Yeah, it's like we've been handed this secret decoder ring for understanding the language of emotions. And the more we practice, the more fluent we become.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond surface level interactions and creating a deeper, more meaningful connection with the people who matter most to us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left wondering how focusing on these insights might change the dynamics of your relationships.
What if you started paying closer attention to the emotional undercurrents in your interactions? How might that shift your communication or deepen your understanding of the people you care about?
Yeah, it's a powerful question to consider. Maybe it inspires you to try one of the techniques we discussed, or to simply be more mindful of the emotional landscape you're navigating each day.
Yeah, and remember, even the smallest steps can lead to significant transformations in your relationships.
So keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of emotions and relationships. Until next time,